Initially for TransAtlantic, I got corralled by the image of Frederick Douglass, who in 1845, still a slave, took this fantastic voyage across the Atlantic and landed in Ireland. And it was an extraordinary thing for me, the image of this man who's still a slave, and he'd written his book, Narrative of the Life of a Slave, arriving on the shores of Ireland, and then unfolding at his feet, he sees the beginnings of the Irish famine. And I thought, well, that's an incredible journey. And then also at the time I was juggling the idea of Senator George Mitchell's numerous transatlantic journeys back and forth between New York and Belfast to help negotiate our peace process. And one of the other strands that struck me was Alcock Brown, who do the very first, they are RAF men who do the very first transatlantic journey in 1919 in an airplane. A fantastic thing where they go like across the ocean in an open air Vickers Vimy airplane. And you know, I just did a transatlantic journey literally last night, and I was complaining because the tea wasn't hot enough, you know. Half the book is quote-unquote non-fiction, stories that we know, and the other half of the book is fiction, but they sort of interlace and become one another. Because I'm interested in the notion that, you know, the real is imagined, and then, but also the imagined can be very, very real at the same time too. Because the characters that we meet in books, even if they are invented, become entirely real for us, and sort of live with us, not only in our heads but in our hearts. And so if we can make a sort of leap into the lives of others, I think it's a spectacular thing to do, and maybe that's the function and beauty of literature in a way. Where men in particular seem to say, I have men come up to me all the time saying, oh yeah, you write fiction. Oh, I don't read fiction, only non-fiction for me. And I find it hilarious, absolutely hilarious. I think, you know, I want them to read and show them that fiction is just as real as non-fiction. For example, Ulysses, right, the greatest novel of the 20th century. Now, my great-grandfather was alive on June 16, 1904. Would have been the same age as Leopold Bloom, the main character in Ulysses. I never met my great-grandfather, but how do I know what he was like or what he was living through? Because I read a fiction, and the fiction was Ulysses, and his whole life is informed by James Joyce's, or certainly my own bloodline is informed by James Joyce's beautiful novel. And so I have a quarrel with the idea of fiction and non-fiction, but it's good to have a quarrel. I like a good scrap every now and then. My own books, I've written so many really bad books, like that I've started and never finished. And actually I have 2 books in the drawer that I wrote in my early 20s. They were finished, but really they were unfinished, and they'll never see the light of day. Let me put it on tape here and now. If anybody ever takes those novels of mine out of the drawer after I'm dead and gone, I'll come back as a ghost now. I will haunt them. I have a closet that I've re-kitted to, and I just sit in there, and I like it. And I didn't think it was weird at all, but now everybody comes to me and says, "That's weird. You sit in that little box. It's like a coffin." And maybe it is like a bit like a coffin, but I love it. I have two walls here, and I can't really see beyond them, and I just sit and concentrate. But I don't really have any other weird writing habits. I do have a shirt that I got from one of my favorite authors, John Berger. And when I started writing the last chapter of this particular novel, TransAtlantic, I wore the shirt just because I think he's a genius, and maybe some of it would rub off on me. And I suppose that's a little bit of a writing habit. I always think of the shirt when I come towards the end of a novel. So, but I don't have any pink pencils or anything like that. No.